Welcome to the webinar on the 8 stages of scheduling. This webinar is intended to be an overview of all of the areas that will need to be touched on or at least considered when working with your scheduling for the new year. So there are 8 stages for scheduling that we highly suggest, the first being planning, followed by initial data gathering, registration, developing the course master schedule, testing and improving the course master schedule, manual editing and cleaning up, printing final documentation, and then the year-round maintenance following your scheduling process. The first step is going to be planning. Who is going to do what portion of the process? Now, some schools will have several people be in the process for scheduling, so they each can do their own part. And there are also other schools that will only have 1, maybe 2 people focusing on the scheduling, just because sometimes it helps to have one person who happens to know all aspects of the process. It is important as there is a fair amount of time and effort that goes into scheduling, so it really is important to know right from the start who is going to be doing what. It's also important to know what courses are you going to be offering. Specifically, will you be adding new courses? Will you be having some returning courses from the previous year, or will you be getting rid of courses? This is something to consider before even getting into the scheduling process. It's also good to determine about how long each task will take. This is easier to do if you have gone through this scheduling process beforehand. However, if you're not sure, at least try to dedicate a chunk of time for each area. So write out what each area needs to be done, and then try to dedicate a certain amount of time that you will be working on that area. And the biggest thing that we can recommend is that you organize. Make sure you have a list of everything that needs to get done. Have the list include who is going to be doing what part of the process, all of the courses you're going to offer, and this organization is going to play a major role in being successful with scheduling. So the first step is going to be initial data gathering. You're going to want to roll over some data from the previous school year using school year maintenance. And if you are not familiar with school year maintenance, this is going to be located in MMS generations. You're going to go under admin, school year maintenance. And what you're going to do is want to bring over very specific tables or any tables that are going to be involved in scheduling. Sometimes some schools like to do their initial rollover of their data when working with scheduling, just because then that way it covers all your bases. You happen to have all of the tables that you could possibly need for scheduling. I'm not going to go into detail in this area, but we do have multiple knowledge base articles as well as tech bites on this area as well. So I'm going to go ahead and exit out of here. Now you are also going to want to make sure after the rollover that you do enter or edit your departments, your courses with alternate information, and your teachers and rooms. So for editing your departments, you're going to go under School, Edit Departments, and some of these areas can be done within the staff portal. So if I go to Edit Departments, this is where I have a list of all of my current departments, and before even getting started with your scheduling, you want to make sure that you are either going to have the same departments or edit what's needed or remove or add whatever other departments you might have in the new year. Beyond that, you will want to make sure you revisit your course catalog. And in this case, I am actually going to switch over to the staff portal as we do have that feature available there. There we go. So here in the staff portal, if we go under Manage, you will be able to, under the editing jobs, go right into the course catalog. This is also where you will be able to edit your departments as well. So I'm going to go into Edit Course Catalog. And from here, you will want to determine what courses will you be keeping, what courses will you be editing, and what courses will you be removing. It is also important, especially if you plan on utilizing the online course registration feature of our portal system, that you also make sure you enable or change the alternates of certain courses. If I go down here and search for an alternate, you can see that I have several courses that are allowed to be alternates. So this is extremely useful if you find that some courses get overbooked or over-requested and you do need to spread out where students go. This enables them to choose an alternate course if they do not get into their requested course. You're also going to want to edit your teachers and rooms. So if I go back to generations for a moment, there are two areas we're going to want to focus on. Under school management jobs, to edit your teacher information, you're going to want to go under edit staff basic or edit staff expanded. Either will work depending on what you're looking to change. If it's demographic data on the teachers, I would recommend going into the edit staff expanded, just because this provides you with more information on the teacher, and that is going to be done on. We also suggest that you go through and edit your rooms as needed in case you had a room assignment change or you had renaming of your rooms. You'll want to make sure you go into the school management jobs, edit rooms, and edit as needed. If there are any constraints to set, feel free to set those as well. But definitely want to make sure that you at least consider that this would be the time to change room numbers, room names, what have you, before getting too involved with the scheduling process. Now, if the data in the previous steps are already in your database, you have already checked everything, and you have everything set up, we highly suggest that you also print the listings for each to review from here within generations. So from school management jobs, if we go into the school management job reports, this is where all of the listings are going to be located. So this is a good reference area to know what course catalog, what the listings in the course catalog have, the sections, the staff, and the room listing. So it is a nice reference to have while you're creating your schedule. So I'll go ahead and do the room listing as an example. Here you can select the rooms you want to include. By default, it does list all of them. And I'm going to go ahead and click on print. And this is just going to show you the room code, as well as if there are constraints, courses room 102 must be used for. This is where these constraints would be listed as well if there were any. Now again, I'm going to go back to, if you do plan on using the online course registration feature, it is also important to go into the course catalog as well and make sure you choose what is available for the web. So if I come all the way over to here, so this column right here, not available for web, that just indicates that those courses that are checked off will not be available for students to select when registering for their online courses. So make sure you go down through and choose what you would not like students to sign up for. So I have a couple examples of English 9+. That is a class that I want my students to be placed into but not request. And again, for configuring online course registration, we do have a webinar available, as well as Tech Bites and knowledge base articles. Once that is all set up, the registration process can begin. So after the students and parents have completed their online course registration, this can be done over the course of a week, a couple weeks, whatever you have set up. Then once the requests come in, you as the administrator will have to import those course requests. And that is going to be done under Schedule, Operations, Import Course Requests from the Parent Portal Request table. And though I don't have requests in here at the moment, this is where it will show the number of students who have placed requests, the number of students who have finalized those requests, and so on. This is how you would pull in the requests from the portal system. And this would be done in the new year. I just happen to be in 16-17 in this case. If there are any, you'll want to make sure you enter in student scheduling notes in the student schedule editor. So again, let me go ahead and change over to the staff portal under students schedule editor. And this would be if a student requested a course and had an alternate, but maybe the alternate was not available for them to select, or there is some sort of conflict within their schedule that just needs to be made aware of. You can come into the student profile, student schedule editor, and add in a note at the bottom here. So this is the student schedule note, and this is where you could enter in information if there were conflicts or any other information that an administrator would need to know. You will want to verify student course requests and alternates using another report done in Generations. So this is going to be done under Schedule, More Reports, and it is going to be the Scheduling Student Record Listing. Let's try that again. So this particular report is useful, especially if you plan on dropping courses or need to look at how many students are within a very particular course. So if I go ahead and select English 9 Plus and print this report, we can take a look and see what students in particular are within this course, as well as all of the other courses that they have listed at the time. So here I have one student who does have English 9 Plus, and then it lists all of their other courses for me. And this can also be run for alternates as well. You'll also want to make sure that you print reports that are designed to help decide how many sections of each course are needed based on the number of course requests and where to place singletons and doubletons. There are two reports in particular that are extremely useful in this regard, and that would be the course request tally report and the cross-reference report. So these are two reports that I would recommend taking a look at several times throughout your scheduling process, and both of those can be found under Scheduling, More Scheduling Reports. And the first is going to be the course request tally report, and by default all of them are selected, and I'm going to go ahead and click on print. And what this is going to do is give you a list of each course separated by gender and year of graduation, the number of student requests for each of these courses. So this can be extremely useful to know how many students have signed up for each course. So here is an example in English 9. For the year of graduation of 2020, I have 34 females versus 39 males for a total of 73. So that is just something to keep in mind and gives me an idea of about how many sections I am going to need. So this is an extremely useful report to have printed out as you're going through the creation of your master schedule. Another report that we suggest running is operations, or under scheduling, operations, not operations, under scheduling, more scheduling reports, the cross-reference report. And if I go ahead and print this report, this is going to give me an idea of what other courses students have chosen based on a particular course. So this doesn't give me details on the students, but it does give me numbers and information that could prove to be very useful. So for my English 9 Plus class, I have a total of 24 students that have signed up for that. And then it shows me how many students from that initial 24 have signed up for other courses. So I happen to know from looking at this report that students who are taking English 9 Plus, a good majority of those students, in fact 23 of those students, have also signed up for Intro to Tech. So this is giving me a little bit of insight as to what courses seem to be chosen together. And then same with Health 9. All students who have chosen English 9 Plus are also within the Health 9 course. So again, this is a nice way to kind of see what courses students have been picking together, again giving me a better idea of what kind of schedule I need to create for these students. If it hasn't been done already, do make sure that you have a backup of your data before getting started with scheduling. In a little bit, I am going to show you what checkpoints are, as those are essentially mini backups of your scheduling data, but we highly suggest that you do have at least a backup of your data, and that is more in regards to self-hosted clients. If you are hosted by Computer Resources, you are actually all set as we back up your data every night. So you will have a backup from the previous day by being MMS Online. Now, as we're getting into developing the course master schedule, which is step 4, we already covered 2 reports that are extremely useful in developing that master schedule, but another report that can be run is also under schedule, more scheduling reports. And this one is the request scheduled report. Now, this report can be extremely useful because you can see the number of requests for each course versus the number of students that have actually been scheduled within the report. Now, this one should be run fairly frequently while you're developing your schedule, because as I continue looking down here, you can see that a lot of the courses are 100% scheduled, so that means the number of students that have requested the course are scheduled within the course. However, there are a few, like this one right here, the American Lit 11 Honors, had 17 requests, but only 16 students were scheduled. So that's only 94%, which is actually pretty good. But the one below is only at 71% with 7 student requests and only 5 scheduled. So looking at those type of percentages will give me an idea of when I actually need to add in another section, or possibly add in or change the order of the periods that some of the courses fall into. So this is a very useful report to run as you are building your schedule. While on that topic, this is a great opportunity now that you have all of your areas set up to start running the automated schedule builder. Now, this is not the only scheduler we have available. I will be covering all schedulers that we do have, but I do want to point out that the automated schedule builder is extremely useful for especially large schools that have a schedule that does not stay the same year to year per se. So if your course schedule tends to stay the same year to year, or there isn't that many changes besides what students are within the courses, there are actually a couple other schedulers that I'll show you that you can use instead. But the automated schedule builder, which we do have plenty of documentation, articles, couple webinars, and tech bites on, is done within the portal system. It can also be done in Generations, but we highly suggest you go through the portal system, as it is essentially laid out for you the process. So under scheduling, this is where you're going to see the automated schedule builder. And essentially what you're going to want to do is go right down through the list here, starting with build schedules, all the way going down to the schedule analysis report. So as long as you're able to go through each of these to really set items up, get everything in order to have the system schedule all of your students for you, this is an extremely useful tool for large schools. Now, as you're doing that, we highly suggest here at Computer Resources that you go through and manage checkpoints, or create checkpoints. Now, we suggest using these because it is not a full backup of your database, but it is a backup of your scheduling database. So checkpoints really do allow you to take the time to try different things with your schedule, see if changing the constraints of different courses and the constraints of different rooms, for example, see how that affects the percent scheduled report, if it gets better or worse, because if it does get worse, then you can always come back to a checkpoint and actually recall that particular checkpoint. So if I wanted to create a checkpoint of my current schedule, all I have to do is click on Create New Checkpoint, provide a description, which this is where you would be able to enter in what it is you tried. So maybe you added in some new constraints to some teachers, or some new constraints to some rooms. You can add in teacher constraint, teacher change, what have you, just to give you an idea of what it is you tried beforehand. So now again, the automated schedule builder is a little bit involved just with the setup of the constraints. It does make it a lot easier for scheduling than going through and doing the schedule by hand. But for schools that are smaller, or they have a schedule that doesn't tend to change as far as sections are concerned or courses, then what I would suggest doing instead is use one of the other schedulers that we have available. If I go back under scheduling, we actually have several different operations that you can do. We have the student scheduler, which I'll cover in just a moment. We also have a partial scheduler, an alternate scheduler, and an interactive schedule builder. So I'm going to take a look at this one because what's nice about this particular scheduler is that you can schedule a particular course, so one course at a time, but you can put in all the students that are going to need to be into that course at the same time. So this would be a little more streamlined if you happen to have the list of all the students that need to go in each course. Now, if you were to do a schedule on a student-by-student basis, or after the scheduler has run and you need to make some slight edits to one or two students, what you can do instead is go to the schedule editor, which is under students or through scheduling. And if I scroll down just a little bit here, here is the list of my student schedule. If you needed to, you can replace a course. So I can click on that button here and replace a course as needed. Delete a course if needed as well. And you can also change the entry and exit dates. But I would say you would more likely be working with the delete and the replace options instead, at least in the initial stages of your scheduling. And again, we have plenty of online help in the form of Tech Bites, webinars, and knowledge-based articles. This webinar in particular is meant to be just an overview of the different areas, so that's why I want to make sure that I let you know that we do have plenty of areas that you will be able to access information here. Now, once you have really started to set up your schedule, it's important to test and improve the course master schedule, which we have basically covered in the creation of the master schedule. In that, again, you want to make sure that you use frequent checkpoints. This is going to allow you to do plenty of testing with the checkpoints with your schedule. So again, they are mini backups of the scheduling data, or if you are self-hosted, you are also able to do a full backup of your database if something doesn't work out. So you do have multiple options when you use checkpoints or backups to go back when something doesn't quite work out. And also be sure to continue to print out reports to check the status of your schedule. So again, highly suggest that you utilize the request scheduled report that we looked at a bit ago, as well as the free time tally report, which can be found under generations. So let's go take a look at that report really quick. Under scheduling, more reports, and it is going to be the student free time tally report. So if I go ahead and just click on print here, this is going to just show me a list of all of the students as well as the free time that they have, so I know where I need to either create a new section or shuffle the student's schedule. So this report is going to show me for each period and on each day the number of students that have a free period. So there's 131 students in my database that don't have a course within period 1 on Monday. So that is something I will have to take into consideration and either create a new course or put in study halls. So this is an excellent report to know how many students have a free period those days. So continue to run the different schedulers to your preference. You are able to use multiple schedulers at the same time, or at least together, in order to get the schedule that best suits that year. So again, feel free to continue running the schedulers to your preference. You are able to use several schedulers. You don't have to stick with just one or the other. Do whatever works for you in order to get the schedule that is going to work for your current school year. Make the changes that you need. Try running it multiple times. And that, again, that is where the checkpoints and backups are really going to come into play. Once you have a rough estimate, or at least a majority of your master schedule more or less all set, this is when you're going to want to start really focusing on the manual editing and the cleaning up. So this is where running like the alternate scheduler, which is a separate scheduling pass. If I go into the staff portal, if I go into the staff portal, scheduling, alternate scheduler is going to be located here. Again, this is a separate scheduling pass. It is similar to the partial scheduler, and it is run in an attempt to resolve remaining schedule problems by applying alternates. So a scheduled class cannot be unscheduled from this alternate scheduler in order to schedule an alternate for another class. So scheduled classes cannot be unscheduled. This is where you may have to go in and manually change some items, but this would provide you with a way to shuffle items in order to get the schedule that you need, including alternates that students have requested. Now, this is assuming that you have used the online course registration. Another report, once again you have your master schedule more or less all set, that you are going to want to run is the student non-scheduled and conflicts report. So this is under scheduling, more scheduling reports, and it is right here, the student non-scheduled conflicts report. So this is going to allow you to take a look at students that are not scheduled, students with conflicts, or just look at scheduled students as well. So I'm going to look at just the non-scheduled students for this report. All right, so what this does is it prints out the student schedules, and it only shows students that are not scheduled in certain courses. So like this student has a Wednesday and Friday morning. Period 4 is completely free. So what's nice is you can print out all the pages of this report in order to go through and find the students specifically that have blanks in their schedule. And again, if you have to edit a particular student, so from that report, if you saw that a student had to have another course added from either the staff portal or here in Generations, you can go in and edit the student course records or the student schedule records in order to make the changes needed on a student-by-student basis. If you are licensed for study halls, then you will be able to print the study hall requirements report to determine how many and where study halls are needed. So that is, again, under scheduling, more scheduling reports, and it is the study hall requirements report. And I'm just going to go ahead and print this. And what this does is it shows me the period and term and what days. So it shows me the number of students that are free for those. So I have several students Monday through Friday who in period 1 do not have a course. So that might be a good time to have a study hall placed. And same here with period 4. A lot of students I have Monday through Friday do not have a schedule or at least a course scheduled in. So this might be a good opportunity for me to put in a study hall here to at least have them scheduled into something. So in order to do that, you will need to run the study hall scheduler, and that is going to be under operations for scheduling. And it is the schedule study halls operation here. So starting period 1, ending period 10, you can choose the terms to include, and this would be the scheduler you would want to run to put in those study halls, or if you didn't have nearly as many students and you wanted to do it by hand, you could also go in and add study halls manually from the student record list or from the student schedule editor. So after you have gone through all of the steps for creating your master schedule, you feel pretty good about it, you definitely want to make sure you still print out a lot of documentation. So these are what we would call printing the final documentation, more so to do a final check to make sure everything kind of checks out. So again, once you have really gone through all of your scheduling, so this would be where you would want to print out some of the listings that you may have already printed again, including the course catalog listing and section listing, the student schedules, the class lists, printing the teacher master schedule, the teacher schedules and room schedules, and other reports that you may need. So a lot of these can be found under the scheduling reports or under school management jobs, school reports. So this would be the course catalog listing, section listing, any of the other listings that you might need here. And you could also go under schedule, more scheduling reports, and a lot of these like teacher schedules, teacher's master schedule, a lot of the reports listed here are going to be what you will want to print out to make your final check, make sure everything is good to go. And just in case, we highly suggest you also include one last checkpoint. Even if you are fairly settled with how your master schedule is looking, we definitely suggest you create one last checkpoint just to have as a backup of your scheduling data. So after schedules have been released, they are all set at this point. Now comes the time to work on year-round maintenance of your schedule. So during the school year, it is inevitable that there will be changes, additions, withdrawals to your student schedules. Therefore, it's necessary for you to process these changes, and we do have an operation called the Scheduling Email Notification Agent that is going to keep teachers informed of when a student enters or withdraws from one of their sections. Now, this is not required, but it can be useful, especially if you have a fair amount of drops or changes and you want to keep your teachers notified. So that is going to be located under School Management Jobs, Operations, and it is the Scheduling Email Notification Agent setup. And yes, I do want to create that. No, I don't. I'm not going to go into detail on that particular operation, but we do have a knowledge base article that goes into more detail with that. And again, you want to use your final revision copies of all reports to note any changes. This way you will always have up-to-date reports for reference if you don't have the opportunity to update the scheduling system or print out the report's latest revision. So that's again why we suggest printing out a lot of the reports so you have a physical copy as well. If a new student needs to be scheduled, so a new student comes into the school year midway or partial way, there is a way to use the Enter Initial Courses sections job and click on the partial scheduler. Okay. And so when you add a new student midway or partway through the school year, you can add the student schedule manually or with the partial scheduler. So if you wanted to, you could go into Edit Student Schedules, select the student that is new in your system, and enter in class by class in order to do that. Also can be done in the staff portal, or you can also go into the enter partial or more schedule editing jobs, enter initial course requests, and this would be where you could select the student and go down through and choose all the courses here, and this provides you with a partial scheduler, but it is on a student-by-student basis. So I would suggest entering in initial courses and sections for your new students. As I have stated a couple times in this webinar, we have plenty of resources for you to utilize in order for you to be successful in your scheduling. Well, actually, let me close out of here. So as I have stated several times, we do have several as I've stated several times throughout this webinar, we have several different areas and a lot of documentation available to you and resources that will provide you with some guidance as well as answer your questions on the scheduling process. So throughout the system, in both generations and the portals, you can, wherever you are located, so here in the alternate scheduler, I can access help by clicking on the help button. And that will bring up a new window that gives you a lot of information on the location that you are in within the portals. And in generations, we also have another form of the help system in there as well. So here is a lot of information just strictly on the alternate scheduler. If you go to our website, which is cri-mms.com, you can go to our training and support area, which without logging in, you have access to our knowledge base articles as well as some learning videos, which are our tech bites or short snippets of questions in particular. So if we go to learning videos, we do have a section dedicated specifically to scheduling. So if I click on scheduling videos right here, we have right away the alternate scheduler, and if I scroll down a bit, we have 3 pages, each containing 9 videos worth of information. So back out to our main front page. If you need to access our knowledge base articles, you can get there by going to Training and Support, search help documents, and clicking on access our knowledge base. So from here you can enter in the 8 stages of scheduling, so this webinar in particular, which I already happen to have up, and this lists everything we have covered in today's webinar, including links to other knowledge base articles that will be covering like the automatic scheduler, configuring online course registration. So this is essentially the webinar in a print format. You can also click in here for scheduling. Just type in a keyword, and here's where you can see how to configure scheduling options. Here's the 8 phases of scheduling. Scheduling email notification agent, creating a filter for scheduling. So again, we have a lot of material available to you for resources in order to be successful in scheduling year to year. Now, if you have a webinar subscription, then you will be able to access our pre-recorded webinars area, which is also from our home page. So if I go back to cri-mms.com, and go to training and support, you will need to log in for this, but if you go to our webinar library, that is where you will be able to access all of our pre-recorded webinars. So again, as an overview of the 8 stages of scheduling, we have planning. You really want to make sure you dedicate some time before you get started on planning out what it is you're going to be doing. You want to do the initial data gathering, including what courses you're going to be having, the rooms, teacher information. Registration, are you going to be having students register with online course registration, or are you going to be manually entering in the courses for students? Developing the course master schedule using one of or multiple schedulers that we have available to you, including the automated schedule builder, the partial scheduler, and the student schedule editor. Testing and improving the course master schedule. This is where if you find that some students aren't within courses or you need to add new sections, definitely try different schedulers out, try changing some constraints, try adding students into other courses. This would be the time to do it before the new year. Manual editing and cleaning up. This would be on a student-by-student basis, making sure that each student has their ideal schedule. Printing the final documentation. So it's good to have a physical copy of everything that you have worked for with this creation of the master schedule. And then year-round maintenance, making sure that students, new students, or students who change their schedules are entered into the system or have their schedules updated as needed.